The Horizon was not a warship. It was a research vessel, built for exploration and learning, not for fighting. Its crew of scientists, engineers, and young officers had left Earth with excitement, hoping to chart new stars and discover habitable worlds. For weeks, everything had gone smoothly. They had mapped nebulae, studied strange asteroid belts, and even laughed at how quiet the universe seemed. Then came the jump. The calculations were routine. The navigator checked the numbers twice, the captain gave the order, and the engines pushed them into faster-than-light travel. Everyone expected to come out in empty space, far away from any known system. Instead, alarms blared the moment they exited. Outside the windows, space was not dark and silent. It was alive. Ships swarmed everywhere. Giant freighters hauling glowing containers, sleek fighters darting in precise patterns, massive war cruisers standing like silent guardians. Traffic lanes stretched across the stars like shining rivers. A huge station loomed ahead, its size greater than any city on Earth. Rings of metal spun around it, glowing with the light of reactors. The crew of the Horizon froze in shock. They hadn't just arrived near another civilization. They had appeared in the heart of one. The captain's first thought was that this had to be a mistake, a broken jump that had flung them into a restricted system. But when the scanners lit up with thousands of signals, the truth hit them harder than gravity. They had just stumbled into the middle of an empire that no one on Earth even knew existed. The aliens noticed immediately. Patrol ships broke formation and turned toward the small, fragile human vessel. Bright beams of scanning energy swept across the horizon, exposing its weapons, or lack of them. A voice boomed through the communication system, deep and commanding, though the translation software struggled to keep up. Unknown vessel, you have entered the territory of the Galactic Empire. Identify yourself or be destroyed. Some of the crew panicked, whispering in fear. The ships outside were enormous, armed with weapons that could erase the horizon with a single shot. The humans had no chance of escape, no chance of fighting back. But the captain, a man hardened by years of experience, simply adjusted his uniform and spoke with a calm voice. This is the research vessel Horizon, representing the planet Earth. We come in peace. The calmness shocked even his crew. A young engineer whispered, "Captain, they could kill us in seconds." He nodded, but did not raise his voice. Then panicking won't save us. The alien fleet formed a tight ring around the human ship. Their weapons glowed, ready to fire. Inside the Horizon, the crew waited for death, but nothing happened. The patrol commander seemed hesitant. The humans were not screaming, not begging. They were simply standing at their stations, eyes steady, as though this situation was not the end of the world. Minutes dragged on like hours. The aliens demanded surrender, and the humans obeyed, though with a strange composure. The Horizon powered down its systems, allowing itself to be pulled toward the massive station. On board, crew members exchanged looks. Some were terrified, others strangely curious. One of them, a young scientist, whispered, "Is anyone else getting the feeling that we just walked into something much bigger than us?" The station grew larger and larger until it filled every window. It was more than a station. It was a city in space, with towers, docking arms, and entire biospheres glowing with light. Aliens of all shapes moved within it, countless species living under the same empire. For the humans, it was overwhelming. For the aliens, it was routine. Yet the sight did not break the human spirit. Instead, they observed it like explorers taking notes. The docking clamps locked. Armed alien soldiers boarded the Horizon, towering figures with strange armor and weapons. Their eyes scanned every human, expecting fear, expecting breakdown. But the humans stood straight. They had seen war before, disasters before, death before. This was terrifying, yes, but not paralyzing. That unshakable calm unsettled the alien soldiers, who exchanged nervous looks but followed their orders. As the humans were marched out of their ship and into the station, whispers spread among the watching aliens. "What are they?" someone asked. "Their vessel is weak. Their bodies are fragile. But look at their eyes. Why do they not tremble?" In the vast docking bay filled with hundreds of alien ships, the humans looked impossibly small. Yet somehow, they did not look broken. They looked as though they had walked into a storm and expected to walk out again. For the Galactic Empire, used to making lesser species kneel, this was the first sign that these newcomers were different. For the humans, this was only the beginning of a mistake. that would change everything. The humans were taken deeper into the alien station, escorted by armored guards with glowing weapons. The halls stretched endlessly, filled with colors, symbols, and technology no one on Earth had ever imagined. Every step echoed like a reminder that they were trespassers. The aliens watching from the sides whispered in their strange languages, their voices filled with suspicion. Some looked at the humans with curiosity, others with fear, but most with cold hostility. The Galactic Empire was not a place that welcomed strangers. Its borders were tightly controlled, its rules absolute. For centuries, every unknown species that appeared had been crushed, forced to kneel, or destroyed to set an example. That was the way of the Empire. Strength above all, fear as control. Now, these humans, with their small, fragile bodies and a weak research vessel, had wandered right into its core. To the Empire's leaders, it was almost insulting. How dare such a primitive-looking species appear here uninvited? The patrol commander who had captured them stood tall, his voice sharp as he addressed the human captain. You are in violation of Imperial space. You will answer for this intrusion. Surrender all knowledge of your world. Resistance means death. His voice was designed to scare, every word amplified through the hall, making smaller alien delegates flinch. But when his words reached the humans, the reaction was not what he expected. The captain met his gaze without lowering his eyes. We came here by accident. Our ship miscalculated a jump. We are explorers, not enemies. His tone was steady, like a man explaining a simple fact. Around him, his crew stood firm, not collapsing in fear. This strange calm spread unease through the alien guards. Normally, prisoners begged for mercy or shouted in panic. These humans simply looked around, studying everything as if this was another day on duty. The Empire's suspicion deepened. To them, calmness meant secrets. If the humans were not panicking, it must be because they were hiding something. Surely, no weak race could act so steady under the shadow of the Empire's wrath. Whispers grew in the chamber. Are they spies? Do they have allies? Is this a trick? To test their resolve, the Empire ordered an interrogation. The humans were separated into groups, taken into cold rooms lit by harsh lights. Machines hummed, projecting terrifying images of destruction, while alien interrogators loomed over them. Questions were shouted, threats were made, but the humans gave the same answers. Their ship was civilian, their planet was far away, and their arrival here was a mistake. The more the humans stayed calm, the angrier the interrogators became. One young crew member was shown holograms of alien war. Cities burned, fleets destroyed, billions enslaved. The interrogator sneered, "This is the fate of those who resist. Do you understand what will happen to your people if you lie?" The young human swallowed hard but did not cry. Instead, he whispered, "We've seen cities burn before. We've seen worse." His quiet voice unsettled the alien so much that he stepped back in confusion. How could a fragile creature speak as if galactic war was familiar to him? In another room, the captain faced direct questioning from a council officer. Your people are unknown. Your technology is weak. Why do you act as if you are not afraid? The captain leaned forward and answered simply, because fear does not help. We are alive. That is enough. The officer studied him, disturbed by the calmness in his eyes. It was the look of someone who had lived through storms, wars, and disasters, and had survived them. Suspicion spread even further among the Empire's leaders. Reports of humanity's strange reaction reached the higher command. Some argued the humans were dangerous tricksters, trained to resist fear. Others claimed they must have powerful allies hidden somewhere. A few even wondered if these beings were survivors of something far darker than the Empire itself. Meanwhile, the humans were kept under heavy guard, but their behavior never changed. They shared food calmly, spoke to one another softly, and even joked at times, as though the walls closing in around them were not enough to break their spirit. One alien guard overheard them laughing quietly about the taste of alien rations, calling it better than military meals back on Earth. The guard felt a chill. How could prisoners laugh in such a place? The suspicion turned into unease. The Empire had expected weaklings. Instead, they found people who seemed untouched by fear. The humans did not threaten, but they did not bow. They answered questions but never begged. They looked at the Empire's vast power and acted as though they had seen far worse back home. To the aliens, it was impossible to understand. The Empire's leaders gathered to discuss their next move. Some demanded execution, fearing what secrets these humans hid. Others urged study, believing there was value in understanding such resilience. In the end, they agreed to test them further, to push until the humans broke. But deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. If these strange newcomers could stand so calm under the shadow of the Galactic Empire, then perhaps they were not as weak as they seemed. Perhaps, just perhaps, the humans were something the galaxy had never faced before. The humans were finally brought before the Empire's Central Assembly, a vast chamber filled with alien species from across countless worlds. The ceiling stretched high above, glowing with shifting lights that looked like moving stars. Rows of alien leaders sat in balconies carved from shining metal, their eyes fixed on the small group of humans standing in the center. To the humans, it felt like stepping into the middle of a stadium, but instead of sports fans, there were beings who held the power of life and death over them. The Horizon's crew stood together. Their uniforms looked plain compared to the decorated robes, jeweled armor, and flowing garments worn by the alien delegates. Yet, the humans did not bow their heads. They looked around, curious, as if studying the architecture instead of fearing for their lives. The whispers began almost immediately. "They are so small," hissed a scaled alien with eyes like burning coals. "They look fragile. How do they even survive their own gravity?" asked a tall creature with translucent skin. Another voice whispered, "Do you see their faces? No fear, not even confusion. What are they hiding?" The human captain stepped forward when called. His voice carried through the translator, steady and calm. "We are explorers. Our ship came here by mistake. We mean no harm." His words echoed in the chamber, but instead of softening the crowd, they sparked debate. Some alien leaders laughed, dismissing the humans as insignificant. "Explorers? In that tiny ship? Do not insult the Empire," one barked. Another snarled, "No species enters the Empire without permission. Mistake or not, they must be punished. If we show mercy, others will think us weak." The hall trembled with voices demanding harsh judgment, but not all agreed. A smaller group of aliens remained silent, watching closely. They noticed details others missed, the way the humans stood side by side, not a single one breaking posture, the way they scanned the chamber, taking in every detail with calm eyes, the way their bodies did not shake even when surrounded by threats. It was unnatural. Normally, weaker species cowered before the Empire's assembly. These humans looked as though they were attending a routine meeting. To test them further, one of the delegates ordered a display of power. The chamber lights dimmed and holograms filled the air. Images of the Empire's might appeared. Fleets of warships, planets burning under orbital bombardment, alien armies marching across conquered worlds. The display was designed to crush the spirit of newcomers, to remind them that resistance was hopeless. All eyes turned to the humans, expecting their faces to pale, their bodies to tremble. Instead, the humans only watched. A young woman in the crew tilted her head, whispering to her teammate, "Looks like history books back home." Another crew member frowned at the hologram of burning cities. "Reminds me of World War II footage," he muttered. Their calm words spread quickly among the guards nearby, who exchanged nervous glances. To them, these humans were not reacting as victims. They were reacting as survivors. The captain broke the silence with a steady voice. "We understand what you show us. We do not challenge your power. But know this, we are not easily broken. Fear is not new to us." His words spread like a ripple through the chamber. Some delegates hissed in anger, others shifted uncomfortably. The very calmness of the humans was beginning to work like a weapon. Whispers turned into rumors. By the end of the assembly, many aliens were speaking of humanity in hushed tones. They stood before the Empire's might and did not tremble, one said. "Perhaps their world is harsher than we can imagine," another suggested. Some even wondered if the humans' calmness was a sign of hidden strength, an unseen force behind their arrival. After the hearing, the humans were led back to their quarters under guard. Along the way, dozens of aliens gathered in the corridors just to see them. Children pressed close to the barriers, staring wide-eyed at the strange newcomers. Traders paused their work, curious to glimpse these beings who acted so strangely under the Empire's judgment. Everywhere, the same whispers followed. Weak bodies, steady eyes, no fear. Inside their quarters, the crew of the Horizon finally had a moment alone. Some sighed in relief, others laughed nervously. One officer shook his head and said, "They think we're fearless. Truth is, my legs haven't stopped shaking since we got here." The captain smiled faintly. "Fear is normal, but showing fear, that's a choice. And right now we cannot afford to look weak." His words gave the crew strength, though deep down each of them knew they were walking a thin line between survival and destruction. Meanwhile, across the station, alien delegates debated the humans' fate late into the night. Some wanted them executed quickly, before their presence inspired trouble. Others argued that such calmness under pressure should be studied. A few even began to whisper that perhaps these humans could be useful allies, or dangerous enemies. The first encounter had not gone the way the Empire expected. The humans were supposed to be another small species to crush underfoot. Instead, they had planted a seed of doubt, a spark of curiosity, and a shadow of fear in the hearts of the mighty. The story of the humans' strange composure was already spreading beyond the chamber, carried by every witness who had seen it with their own eyes, and with each telling, the legend of humanity grew. The Empire decided the humans had to be tested. They believed that no matter how calm these strange newcomers appeared, everyone had a breaking point. If they could shatter the human spirit, the illusion of strength would vanish, and the Empire would once again prove its dominance. Orders were given, and the trials began. The first trial was interrogation through fear. The humans were strapped into chairs while machines projected their worst nightmares. For one crew member, the holograms showed a massive alien beast tearing through metal walls, its claws dripping with fire. For another, the simulation showed their ship crumbling in the middle of space, their friends dying one by one. The machines were designed to break the mind, but the humans did not scream. They flinched, yes, their hearts pounded, but they did not beg for mercy. One young scientist whispered to himself, "Feels like the tornado drills back home," and steadied his breathing. Another muttered, "We've lost worse in accidents on Earth." Their quiet words confused the interrogators, who expected panic, not strange comparisons. The second trial was exposure to alien war beasts. The humans were placed inside an arena where giant creatures were released, creatures with teeth like swords and scales harder than steel. The crowd of aliens watching from behind barriers expected the humans to collapse in terror. Instead, the humans spread out, their eyes sharp, their movements coordinated. They didn't attack, but they didn't freeze either. One of them whispered, "Remember the training back home. Keep your head. Don't run." To the aliens, it looked as though these fragile beings had faced monsters before. When the beasts lunged, the humans dodged, using teamwork to avoid death. Minutes passed, and though their bodies were shaking, they survived without falling apart. The arena guards were unsettled. The trial was meant to show weakness, but instead it revealed discipline. The third trial was silence. The humans were locked in pitch-black cells for long hours, their minds left alone in total isolation. Many species broke under this test, screaming to be released, clawing at the walls. The humans did not. Some slept, others hummed songs softly to themselves. A young woman whispered an old Earth lullaby in the darkness, and her voice carried through the cell walls, reaching the others. Instead of breaking them, the silence seemed to bind them closer. The guards listening through hidden devices reported with unease, "They comfort each other. They do not collapse." The fourth trial was temptation. The Empire offered the humans freedom and wealth if they betrayed their captain and revealed Earth's secrets. Food, safety, even positions within the Empire's army were promised, but none of the humans accepted. They stayed loyal, if even when the offers grew sweeter. One alien official hissed, "Every species breaks with the right price. Why not them?" But the humans only smiled bitterly and said, "We've seen what happens when greed wins. We don't want that again." Their unity was harder than the Empire expected. Each test only deepened the mystery. The more the Empire tried to break the humans, the more they acted as if they had already survived worse. Stories spread quickly through the station. Guards whispered to one another about how the humans stared into the eyes of war beasts without fainting. Interrogators complained that their illusions of fire and death only reminded the humans of their own history. "They acted like war is normal for them," one officer muttered, unsettled. Finally, the Empire decided to test them with open intimidation. The humans were brought into a chamber filled with the Empire's soldiers, rows of towering warriors in gleaming armor, each carrying weapons capable of leveling cities. The soldiers slammed their weapons against the ground in unison, the sound echoing like thunder. It was a show of power meant to crush the spirit of any prisoner. The humans stood in the middle of it, small and outnumbered, but instead of crumbling, they watched carefully. One whispered, "Reminds me of the military parades back on Earth." Another added, "Louder drums at home." They even shared a small laugh, though their eyes were sharp, ready for danger. To the soldiers, it was unnerving. They had terrified countless species before, but these humans refused to act afraid. By the end of the trials, the Empire was no closer to breaking them. Instead, they were left with a disturbing realization. These humans had lived through storms, wars, disasters, and darkness already. The things that shattered other races only reminded the humans of home. The calmness they carried was not arrogance, it was survival. The leaders of the Empire gathered in secret meetings, whispering uneasily about what they had witnessed. One commander said, "If this is how they react with no weapons and no army, imagine what they could do with power." Another admitted, "Their eyes are not those of children, they are the eyes of survivors." Some pushed for immediate execution, fearing what might happen if humans spread across the galaxy. Others argued that destroying such a resilient species might be a mistake. Meanwhile, the humans returned to their quarters, exhausted but unbroken. They knew they were being tested, but they did not know how much fear they had planted in the hearts of their captors. The Empire had wanted to expose weakness. Instead, they had uncovered something far more dangerous, a strength born not from weapons, but from the human will to endure. And though the humans did not yet realize it, whispers of their resilience had already begun to slip beyond the station, carried by those who had witnessed the trials. The Galactic Empire, so used to unquestioned control, was beginning to wonder if they had finally met a species that could not be intimidated. Alien scholars began their search the moment reports about the humans reached the higher council. The trials had left too many questions unanswered. Why had the humans not broken? Why had they spoken about disasters and wars as if those things were normal to them? Why had they looked at alien war beasts with recognition instead of fear? The Empire had to know the truth. Teams of historians and analysts gathered in the archives, pulling every fragment of data collected from the human ship. The Horizon had not carried much, but the broadcasts it had sent across the stars during its journey had been recorded. Earth's old transmissions, music, news, documentaries, were analyzed frame by frame. At first, the aliens laughed. "These humans record everything," one of them mocked, pointing to old radio waves filled with songs. But soon their laughter stopped. They found records of human wars, not fiction but history. Images of mushroom clouds rising into the sky stunned them. Footage of cities flattened by bombs made even hardened warriors shift in their seats. They listened to reports of 2 world wars, conflicts where millions had died. They saw black and white footage of men fighting in trenches, faces caked with mud, eyes hollow but unyielding. They saw fiery explosions overseas, burning ships sinking into waves, soldiers climbing over ruins to keep fighting. The aliens realized that the humans had not faced one galactic war. They had faced countless wars on their own single world. One historian whispered in disbelief, "They wage wars against themselves, entire nations destroying each other." Another answered, "And they survived, again and again." Shock spread through the research halls. No other known species had endured such endless cycles of violence and still risen to build ships that reached the stars. But war was not all they found. They uncovered records of natural disasters, earthquakes ripping cities apart, tsunamis swallowing entire coasts, volcanic eruptions blotting out the sky. Footage of hurricanes leveling towns filled the screens. The aliens saw humans pulling survivors from rubble, building again after devastation, never giving up. One scholar shook his head and muttered, "Their world itself is an enemy, yet they still live." Plagues were next. Diseases that swept across Earth, killing millions. Reports of pandemics where doctors worked through the night, trying to save lives while the sick filled every bed. The aliens realized humans had not only faced death from war and nature, but from invisible enemies inside their own bodies. And still, they endured. The deeper the historians searched, the more unsettled they became. One record showed humans testing nuclear weapons, creating blasts that tore islands apart. The observers fell into stunned silence. They created weapons that could end their entire species, an analyst whispered. Another added, and they still live with them. They walk daily under the shadow of their own destruction. The discoveries spread quickly through the Empire's ranks. Rumors twisted into stories, stories into fear. Soldiers who had mocked the humans now looked at them with unease. If a species could survive its own endless wars, its violent planet, its self-made weapons of destruction, then perhaps nothing in the galaxy could truly frighten them. Among the humans, this growing suspicion was felt in the way the guards looked at them. At first, the guards had treated them like fragile animals, laughing at their small size. Now their eyes were cautious, even respectful. One human officer noticed it and whispered to the captain, "They're staring at us differently, like we're dangerous." The captain only nodded. They're beginning to understand. In the council chamber, arguments erupted. One faction demanded the immediate extermination of humans before they could grow into a real threat. If they have survived such horrors, then one day they will challenge us, a warlord thundered. But another faction resisted. To destroy them now would be to admit we fear them, said a strategist. And if their history is true, killing them may not even be easy. The debate grew fierce, with no side willing to back down. Meanwhile, alien civilians whispered among themselves. Traders in the markets passed rumors. The new species, they come from a death world, one said, a place where nature itself tries to kill them. Others argued that the humans were cursed, dangerous to be near. But a few, secretly, admired them. If they can survive such a planet, imagine what they could do as allies, a merchant murmured. The humans themselves remained unaware of how much fear their history was causing. They sat in their guarded quarters, eating alien rations and quietly discussing their situation. One crew member said with a grin, "Funny how they keep trying to scare us. If only they saw what Earth was like in the 20th century." Another laughed softly. If they saw rush hour traffic back home, they'd probably run. The humor eased their fear, but it also showed why the aliens were unsettled. Even under threat, the humans could joke. The more the Empire learned, the more dangerous the humans seemed. Not because of their weapons, but because of their will. They had survived centuries of war, disasters, and death without collapsing. Every attempt to break them in the present only reminded them of their past. And if history was any sign, the humans would not only endure, they would grow stronger. By the end of the investigations, the Empire no longer saw the humans as intruders who made a mistake. They saw them as survivors from a nightmare world, carrying scars deeper than most galactic species could imagine. The humans had not acted fearless because they were arrogant. They had acted fearless because, compared to what they had already lived through, the Empire's threats seemed small. The historians delivered their final report to the Council. The words were heavy, the meaning clear. The humans are not like others. They come from a world that has already tested them harder than any trial we can create. They have lived with fire, with death, with war, and they have not broken. We should not see them as weak. We should see them as a warning. Those words spread like wildfire, and soon the entire Empire was whispering the same thing. The humans had survived worse. The humans were not released after the trials or the interrogations. They were kept under constant watch, their quarters filled with hidden cameras and guards stationed outside every door. Yet the reports flowing back to the Empire's leaders carried the same troubling message. The humans did not behave like prisoners. They moved with quiet order, spoke in calm tones, and carried themselves as if waiting out a storm rather than facing the greatest power in the galaxy. Their silence was not emptiness, it was strength. When guards entered their quarters, they expected to see fear in human eyes. Instead, they found steady gazes, polite nods, and an unshakable composure. The humans asked questions about food, light, and air circulation, but never begged for freedom. They treated the alien guards like ordinary officials, not monsters holding their lives hostage. Some guards grew uneasy under that gaze. One of them admitted to a superior, "It feels like they're studying us, not with arrogance, but with patience, as though they've seen all this before." At night, the guards reported sounds from inside the human quarters: quiet singing, soft laughter, even stories being told in low voices. One young alien officer pressed his ear to the wall and heard the humans sharing memories of home. A woman spoke about snow falling on her city, describing how people built shelters and cleared the streets after storms. Another told of a great flood that destroyed his town, but said how neighbors carried each other to safety. The officer pulled back, confused. These humans did not speak of despair. They spoke of survival. Words spread among the soldiers. Many began to look at the humans with a kind of respect they couldn't admit openly. "They carry scars we cannot see," one guard whispered. "Scars from battles no one here would have survived." Another replied, "Perhaps their silence is not weakness. Perhaps it is the sound of endurance." When the humans were brought once more before the council for questioning, the hall was tense. The alien leaders expected the humans to finally break under repeated threats. Instead, the humans stood the same way they always had: upright, calm, watching without flinching. The captain answered questions with short, clear words. He did not raise his voice, but every word carried weight. "We are not here as enemies. We did not choose to enter your space. We only ask to return home." His tone was steady, so steady that even the most aggressive warlord found no crack to push against. One leader snarled, "You do not tremble. Do you not understand the power standing before you?" The captain's reply was simple: "We understand, but power does not always mean fear." The chamber grew quiet at those words. The alien leaders had expected pleading or arrogance. They received neither. They received a kind of stillness that felt older than the Empire itself. Among the lower ranks of the Empire, whispers turned into a quiet shift. Soldiers who once mocked the humans now treated them with a cautious form of respect. Market traders on the station spoke of the humans' strange calm, saying they did not bow, they did not scream, and yet they were not proud, they simply endured. For the first time in generations, the Empire felt its certainty shake. Fear had always been its strongest tool, yet here was a species that refused to bend beneath it. The humans themselves felt the change too. When guards delivered food, they no longer slammed the trays down roughly. When the humans asked for water, it was brought without delay. The crew whispered among themselves that their behavior was working. "They expected us to panic," one scientist said quietly. "Instead, we showed them we can stand. That's our weapon here." But it wasn't really a weapon. It was truth. The humans were not pretending to be fearless. They simply knew fear too well to let it rule them. They had grown up on a planet where storms leveled cities, where diseases took loved ones, where war scarred entire generations. Compared to those things, the Empire's threats felt familiar, not impossible. One alien commander secretly observed the humans for hours, watching through hidden screens. He saw how they sat together, ate together, and comforted one another without words. He watched them laugh softly, even in confinement. Finally, he admitted to his colleagues, "They are not strong because of their weapons. They are strong because they refuse to collapse. That is harder to fight than any army." The silence of the humans began to spread like an unspoken force. Every time they were dragged before interrogators, their steady composure unsettled their captors. Every time they faced soldiers, their calm eyes seemed to reflect back centuries of pain and survival. It was not defiance, not submission. It was something new, something the Empire was not prepared for. And in that silence, respect grew. Warriors who had fought all their lives began to murmur that perhaps these humans were not weak at all. Perhaps they were dangerous in a way no one could measure. Some even began to fear what might happen if humanity ever stood as an equal among the stars. The humans, unaware of how deeply they were changing the Empire, simply continued as they always had. They kept their discipline, their humor, and their quiet strength. The more they did nothing, the more powerful they seemed. The Galactic Empire, which had ruled through fear for centuries, was beginning to feel something it had not felt in generations: uncertainty. And that uncertainty came not from weapons or armies, but from the unshakable silence of a handful of humans who refused to break. The Empire's leaders were running out of choices. All their methods of fear, intimidation, and testing had failed. The humans remained calm, and their silence had already started to disturb the balance inside the council. Some commanders argued for extermination, but others whispered that killing a species capable of such resilience might be a mistake that would haunt them forever. The more they debated, the clearer one truth became: the humans would not bend, and if the Empire kept pushing, it might only make them stronger. Finally, the Council decided on another path. Instead of breaking the humans, they would negotiate. At first, this idea shocked the more aggressive factions. Negotiating with intruders was against every tradition of the Empire. But when they considered the humans' behavior, they realized these beings were not like any other species they had conquered. They had not come begging for mercy, nor had they raised weapons in arrogance. They had simply endured, as if they had seen all of this before. That endurance demanded recognition, even if the leaders refused to admit it openly. The humans were summoned once more into the Great Chamber. This time, the mood was different. The soldiers lining the walls were still armed, but their eyes no longer mocked. The alien delegates leaned forward, studying the humans with suspicion and curiosity rather than contempt. The captain of the Horizon stepped forward, his face steady, his voice calm. "We told you before we did not come to fight. We are explorers. All we ask is to be allowed to return home." The silence that followed was heavy. A warlord broke it first. "And why should we allow it? You trespassed into our space. Your kind is weak. One command and you would all be dust." His words were sharp, but his eyes betrayed something else: hesitation. He had seen enough of the humans to know they were not so simple. The captain did not raise his voice in reply. He simply said, "If you believe we are weak, then let us go. We do not challenge you. But if you believe we are dangerous, then understand this: fear will not control us. It never has." The words struck the chamber like a blow. The aliens were unused to such honesty, such calm defiance spoken without rage or arrogance. For a moment, no one responded. The council began to argue among themselves. Some shouted that the humans must be kept as prisoners forever. Others demanded their immediate death. But another group, smaller yet louder than before, argued that the humans had already proven themselves. "If they do not kneel now, they never will," one delegate said. "And yet they do not raise a hand against us. Such beings are not enemies to crush. They are rivals to respect." Outside the council, rumors had already spread among the station's population. The stories of the humans' calmness had grown into legends whispered in corridors. Traders told each other they looked at war beasts and did not tremble. Soldiers muttered they stood before the council and never bowed. For common citizens of the Empire, this was unheard of. A species from nowhere, stepping into the very core of power, refusing to break. It was a story too strange not to spread. The negotiations began not with agreements, but with silence. The humans asked for nothing more than safe passage. The Empire tried to demand submission, but the humans refused to use the word. They would cooperate, but not kneel. Every time the Empire pushed, the humans answered with patience. "We will share knowledge. We will obey laws in your space, but we will not bow. We come as equals, not as servants." At first, this angered the council, but the more they tried to force submission, the more they realized they were staring at a wall that could not be moved. It was not arrogance, not rebellion. It was the quiet certainty of a people who had already survived worse than the Empire's threats. Slowly, grudgingly, the leaders began to shift their stance. The moment that sealed it came during one heated session. A warlord slammed his weapon on the table and shouted, "Do you not see our armies, our fleets, our power?" The human captain looked directly at him and said, "We see them. They are strong. But power is not new to us. We have lived under power before. We know it does not last forever." The chamber went silent. Every delegate present felt the weight of those words. It was not a threat, not a boast. It was a truth spoken by a species that had endured centuries of destruction, yet still stood. From that point on, the Empire realized it could not treat the humans as it treated others. If they demanded obedience, the humans would resist quietly. If they demanded fear, the humans would give only silence. The only way forward was respect, even if it was reluctant and bitter. Negotiations turned toward practical terms: safe passage, trade possibilities, and limited alliances. The humans remained calm throughout, agreeing to fairness but rejecting chains. When the session ended, the humans were escorted back to their quarters. The guards walked differently this time. They no longer looked at the humans as prisoners, but as representatives of something larger. One guard even muttered softly, "I hope they never become our enemies." The human officer walking beside him heard it and gave a faint smile. Among the humans, relief spread. They had not escaped yet, but they could sense the shift. The Empire, once prepared to destroy them, now sat at the table with them. It was not mercy that had won this, it was resilience. By refusing to bow, yet never raising a hand in violence, the humans had forced the Empire into a position it had never expected, treating outsiders as equals. For the Galactic Empire, it was the beginning of a change they had not planned. For the humans, it was proof of something they had always known. Survival itself could be stronger than weapons. And in those negotiations, a new balance of power began to form, not from bloodshed, but from unshakable human will. Word of the humans spread faster than the council could control it. From the lowest mechanic in the docking bays to the highest officer in the fleet, everyone was whispering about the newcomers who had walked into the heart of the Empire and refused to break. The story was told in many versions. Some said the humans had stared down war beasts without blinking. Others said they had laughed at the Council's threats. A few even claimed the humans carried hidden weapons more dangerous than the Empire's own. The truth was simpler, yet far more unsettling. The humans had acted as though nothing here was new. In the markets of the station, traders spoke about them while passing strange fruits and metals. "They are fragile," one said, "but they looked at our armies and did not tremble." Another replied, "Perhaps their world is harsher than ours. Perhaps that is why they endure." Soldiers who had once mocked the humans now told each other, if they can stand before the council without fear, then maybe they are not weaklings. Maybe they are something we should be careful with. Respect began to grow in places where fear had once been the strongest tool of the Empire. Back in their quarters, the humans could sense the change too. Guards no longer barked orders at them. Instead, they opened doors with small nods, as though greeting equals. The crew whispered about it among themselves. One young officer laughed softly. "They think we're made of steel. Truth is, I was shaking inside the whole time." Another replied, "Maybe that's the point. We've all been shaking, but we didn't show it. That's enough." Their captain listened and gave a single nod. Fear is natural, but endurance is choice, and endurance is what they see. When the negotiations ended, the Empire reluctantly agreed to let the humans leave. Their ship, the Horizon, was escorted back to the docking bay. The journey through the station was unlike before. Where once aliens had looked at them with suspicion, now they looked with something close to awe. Children pointed at them, whispering questions to their parents. Merchants leaned from their stalls to catch a glimpse. Warriors stood straighter when the humans passed, not out of duty, but out of respect. The humans walked calmly, not smiling, not boasting, but carrying themselves as though this moment was no different than any other. Before departure, the captain stood once more before the council. He did not give a speech of victory nor a warning. He only said, "We thank you for allowing us to return. We came here by mistake, but we will not forget this meeting. Neither should you." His words were quiet, but they carried weight. The council members shifted in their seats, uneasy yet respectful. They knew what he meant. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As the Horizon left the station, escorted by alien warships, every eye in the Empire seemed to follow them. The humans did not fire weapons or display power. They simply left in silence, and that silence was louder than any show of force. The aliens watching knew this was not the end. Humanity had touched the center of the Empire and walked away unbroken. That alone was enough to change history. Rumors grew even more after their departure. On distant worlds, people spoke of humans as if they were a legend. A fragile race, they said, who stood before the Empire's armies and did not bow. Others whispered that the humans came from a death world where storms and wars were daily life. Some even claimed the humans were cursed, survivors of endless disasters who could not be killed by ordinary means. The truth became mixed with myth, but the result was the same. Humans were no longer unknown. They were a story carried across the galaxy. Inside the Empire's military, discussions grew tense. Commanders warned their soldiers never to underestimate humans. If they come again, one said, treat them as equals or enemies, but never as weak. In the council chambers, debates raged. Should they monitor Earth? Should they prepare for conflict? Or should they seek alliance before humanity grew too strong? For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt uncertainty toward a species that had no fleet, no empire, and no great weapons, only the will to endure. Back on the horizon, the humans finally allowed themselves to breathe freely. Some laughed, some cried quietly, but all of them felt the same relief. They had survived not through weapons, but through composure. One crew member whispered, "We didn't win a battle, but somehow it feels like we did." The captain nodded. Because battles are not always fought with guns. Sometimes they are fought with silence, and silence can be stronger than fire. As the stars stretched out before them, the humans knew they had left a mark far larger than their small ship. They had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before, a species that did not flinch in the face of power, a species that had lived through worse and still walked forward. The Empire had expected to crush them, but instead it had been forced to respect them. From that day on, the name of humans carried weight in the galaxy. To some, it was a warning. To others, it was a legend. And to the humans themselves, it was the beginning of something greater. They had stepped into the unknown and found an empire waiting. They had walked through it with steady eyes, and the galaxy had taken notice. What came next? No one could say. But one truth was already clear. The humans had earned their place among the stars, not by conquest, but by showing the galaxy that survival itself was power.